Hello, everyone. It's great to see you today. We love all of you and we are praying for you throughout the week. But as always, if you have any specific prayer requests, you can submit those online or through the app, and we would love to be praying for you. Enjoy the service.
Well, welcome. So glad that you joined us today. For those of you that are joining us online, as always, we are glad that you're tuning in with us and following along. As always, we also hope that someday you will be able to join us and have community here at the fellowship at one of our campuses. But we're so thankful that we have the ability to be with you online and for you to be able to continue growing in your walk through online teaching. Well, if you've been with us for a while, you know that we've been in this series called The Game of Life. And we've been just talking about the idea that there's this life that God has created for us. He wrote the rules. And life is so much better lived when we follow it by His rules, when we live it out the way He intends it to be played. And today we're going to be talking about the fact there are no replays. There's no turning the clock back. Right? We don't get a redeal. We don't get to respin or take our turnover. Time always moves forward. You know, Solomon talked a lot about this in Ecclesiastes. He talked about the fact that life is a constant movement forward, and you don't get to go back. And there's a lot of things in this life that can steal our time, that can steal our hearts and distract us from the real true purposes of life, the true meanings of life. And we have to be careful to guard against that. And so today I want to talk about that. Are we guarding our time? Are we using our time the way God calls us to and serving Him with it? A few weeks ago I asked the question, do your commitments match your convictions? Do your commitments match your convictions? And I'd like us to kind of revisit that a little bit as we think about this. Because, you know, the reality is, as much as we would like it sometimes, there's no redos, there's no redeals, no do-overs, no replays. You can't move the calendar backwards. Every day, the calendar keeps moving forward. Every day, the box on a calendar moves from the category of possibilities and what could be to the category of history and what's already over. You know, the most valuable thing on earth in this life that we live is time. Think about it. Time is the only thing that you can't create, you can't build, you can't grow, you can't even steal it from someone, right? It's just you have what you have, and none of us knows how much time we have. So it's important for us to hold our time close and use it well, to guard it and make sure that we're living our life out and doing the things that God calls us to do with the time that He gave us. Because so often, so many people, they kind of get to the end. And when they're not careful, it's very easy to feel like it just slipped away. Like so much of it was gone. You know, there's so many different things that can take our time. A lot of times it's just our commitments. We're going to talk a lot about our commitments today. Just the things that we kind of have to do, or we at least feel like we have to do. The things that we kind of commit to, and then sometimes they're no longer even fruitful or important, but we still keep doing them. Some of the things that steal our time are addictions. You know, when you think about it, in addiction, it can be a huge time stealer. Take years of our lives away from us, not just by making our life shorter, depending on the addiction, but just in the amount of time it takes up, not just to indulge in an addiction, but the time someone plans to indulge in the addiction, the covering up that they do, the scheming that they have to do. It's a huge time waster. Sometimes it's just little things that just happen to kind of waste our time without us really even being aware of it. They just kind of ends up drifting out. In 1995, a study was done that showed that the average adult American watched 4 hours of television a day. 4 hours a day. Now, there's good news. The good news is that number has gone down since 1995. The average adult American now only watches 2.5 hours of television a day. But our unproductive screen time has gone up significantly. The average adult American has 5.5 hours a day of unproductive screen time. 5.5 hours a day of watching things, playing games, scrolling through different social medias, things that are not work-related or necessarily even going to enhance their lives, but 5.5 hours a day of just letting the screen suck us away in our time. And my guess is that most of us would not say, hey, that was the time I'm going to remember. That was the time of my day that is really going to make an impact. That is the time of the day that I was really, truly living out God's call on my life. And it is interesting. I was really caught off guard a little bit on that last week. We were on vacation with my daughter Rachel, and she was talking about this concept a little bit and talking about just how much screen time we use. And so we all decided to kind of go on our screen time. If you have an iPhone, you can see how much screen time you use every day. And to go on. Now, if you ask me, I would probably just say, oh yeah, I'm probably on my phone about an hour to an hour and a half a day. But my screen time revealed it's more like 2.5 hours a day. And that's where I watch my movies, where I watch TV, where I watch YouTube videos, where every now and then I play a game and scroll media. So it makes sense, but it's way more than I would have ever thought. So as we think about this today, I want us to remember that. I want us to think about the fact that we can't ever go backwards. We can't make up time. And no matter what we do, the calendar is always going to keep moving forward. Jesus talked about the importance of using our time here on this earth and living out the right purpose while we're on this earth. In Matthew 24, verse 36 to 34, he talks about his coming back, his return. And listen to what he says here, Matthew 24, verse 36. He says, "But concerning that day and hour, no one knows. For even the angels of heaven nor the Son, not even the angels of heaven nor the Son, but the Father only. For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day when Noah entered the ark. And they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So it will be with the coming of the Son of Man. 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and one left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken, one left. Therefore stay awake, for you do not know what day your Lord is coming." Now I'm going to continue in the passage, but think about that. What he's saying is, he's talking about the second coming, obviously, and he's saying, hey, no one knows when that's going to happen. No one knows when I'm going to come back. So you need to be ready. We need to be prepared. We need to be making sure we're living out the life that he has for us. Listen, he goes on. Verse 43. "But know this, that if the master of the house had known what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect." Now, obviously, Jesus is talking about his coming back here, right? But the truth is, it doesn't matter if we're talking about him coming back or just whatever day we're going to die, because none of us knows the hour, right? I might have another 10,000 boxes on the calendar left, but I might only have one, right? We just don't know. The other thing is he's talking about here, obviously, is that the key is to obviously make sure we've given our life to Christ, right? That's the important thing. But the truth is, we also need to be about the master's business, right? If we put this along with the parable that Jesus tells about the servants and the talents, right? Remember, the master goes away, he gives each of the servants different talents. And when he returns, he asks for an accounting of those talents. We put those two things together, you see that Jesus is saying, yes, we need to prepare, we need to give our life to him, but we also need to be about his business while we're here on this earth. So I'd like us to think about that today. I'd like us to think about, am I spending my time investing the way God calls me to invest in my life? Now, I'm not sure where this originated, but many authors have included this in different books, talking about death or regret or the way we live our life. And it's this, it's the idea that there are 4 key regrets that people have when they die. 1, that they should have loved more deeply, they should have laughed more often, given more generously, and lived more boldly. Loved more deeply, laughed more often, given more generously, and lived more boldly. Now, when you think about this, all 4 of these things kind of encompass the call that God puts on our life. See, the regrets that people have in life are truly that they didn't live the life that God wants us to live. I mean, the core of the call of Christ is that we love more deeply, right? Laugh more often. I don't know if that really fits, but we could equate that to joy, right? God wants us to live with abundant joy. He wants us to pass that abundant joy on to others. He wants us to take the anxiety of life off of others by sharing the gospel. So we could kind of throw that one in, but giving more generously, God calls us to be generous givers. God just doesn't call us to give. God actually calls us to be givers. There's a difference between someone who gives every now and then and someone who is a giver, someone who's generous. And live more boldly. There is no more bold life than the life that lives out the calling of Christ. So these are the regrets that people have when they live their life, because they don't take time to evaluate and to make the changes necessary to see to it that they are loving deeply, that they are experiencing the joy of life, that they are generous and that they are givers, and that they are living boldly. And so often, it's because things just happen to get in the way. Things just happen to suck our time out. Right? One of the main things that sucks our time is our commitments, right? Then we have dramatic commitments, our big commitments, right? Our time that we need to spend with family, even if we're not making an effort to spend with family, to invest in our family. Just if you're gonna have a family, you gotta spend some time just taking care of kids and doing some things. The work, right? We're called to work. We need to work. Work is going to be one of those commitments that takes a lot of our time, and maybe some sort of group you're involved in. So we have those dramatic commitments, but a lot of times we have those little routine commitments, those little commitments that kind of just steal little bits of our time. It's amazing to me how many people don't take into account the hours that they spend commuting when they think about like where they have a job versus where they're going to live. And how many hundreds and sometimes maybe even thousands of hours, depending on how long you do that commute, people are going to spend doing a commute versus the difference if they lived closer to their home. And what happens is in those commitments, as those commitments grow in life, the gap between what we think is important, what we say matters in life, and the way we end up living our life continues to grow. Because as our commitments grow, if we're not evaluating them, we're not taking time to focus, not taking time to clean out the time on our calendars and set aside time for the things that we know God calls us to, our commitments just keep growing, and that gap just keeps getting wider and wider and wider. So we have to be careful. There are a lot of activities in life that when you think about it, they kind of have a built-in urgency. Right? It's amazing to me how quickly someone can change their calendar around if their car breaks down, right? Someone's car breaks down, they change their calendar around, they fix whatever they need to fix in their schedule to make sure they have those hours to go get their car fixed the next day or is within a couple days. You got a big test coming up. It's amazing how you can find the time to study when you have a big test coming up. A bill has to get paid. It's amazing how you can move money around and kind of figure things out to get a certain bill paid. See, there are certain activities that just kind of create a sense of urgency that we feel like they have to get done, so we make sure they happen. Unfortunately, the call to love more deeply and laugh more often, to give more generously and to live more boldly, doesn't come with urgency. And the things that are oftentimes the most important in life don't feel urgent. They actually feel like something we can always do later. And they get pushed to the back. See, there are things in life that have the built-in urgency. These things do not. Now we get urgings. We get urgings to do these things, don't we? We get urgings to have that conversation that we know we need to have, to spend time with that person that we know we should spend time with, to give a gift that we know we should give, to generously help someone we know we should help, to give encouragement and share a word of encouragement with someone we know we should share with, to read our Bible, to serve in a ministry. We get urgings to do those things that are going to lead to this, but oftentimes we don't act on those urgings. We dismiss them with thoughts like, you know what, as soon as life slows down a little bit, I'm going to get to that. You know, next week I'm going to reach out to that neighbor. This week is just too busy. I just have too much on my schedule. Right? And someday soon I'll be able to spend more time investing in my kids, helping them succeed and grow in the things that really matter in life. But right now I just have to make a little bit more money. I just have this one project at work that has to get done. And time just continues to slip away. I want to read to you little anecdote that was written by a lady named Mary Jean Iron. It's called The Gift from a Hairdryer, and it's the thoughts of a mom who's combing and drying her daughter's hair, her little girl's hair, and kind of the thoughts that go through her head as she's doing that. It says this: comb and dry, comb and dry. Soon I won't be able to do this anymore, you say to yourself, knowing that the little straight bob must inevitably yield to grown-up coffers and ugly curlers. What will she be like at 14? Where will her hair be blowing then? And 16 and 18? You suppose boys will love to watch her hair blow as you do now? And some of them will feel it on their faces, and one of them will marry her, and her hair will be perfect under the veil, and there will be her hair spread out on his pillow. Oh, you hate him a little, and yet you wonder where he is at this moment and whether he'll be good to her. They will grow old together. That gold brown hair will soon be gray, and you will be gone, and then she will be gone. This very hair that you now run through your fingers smooth. All the tears of the world seem to swim for a second in your eyes as you snatch the plug out of the socket suddenly and gather her into your arms, burying your face in the warm hair as if you could steal this moment against all time. So I think that's just a beautiful picture of those times and things that are important in life that oftentimes we just let slip by. So there's a few things that we need to be careful of if we're going to guard against this, if we're going to use the time wisely to love more deeply, to laugh more often, to give more generously, and to live more boldly. One of the main things is we have to guard against commitment creep. Commitment creep, that's that idea that commitments just kind of keep creeping into our life if we're not careful, if we don't guard against them. That we can allow ourselves to just keep saying, oh yeah, I need to take that on. Oh yeah, I need to take that on. We can jump into things and agree to commit our kids to things and our families to things that we don't realize how much of our time it will steal and keep us from doing the things we're truly called to do. We hang on to old commitments. Old commitments that really are not fruitful anymore, that aren't really blessing or helping or strengthening anyone or anything, and yet we hold on to them. And oftentimes we hold on to these commitments and we keep allowing this commitment creep to build until there's an emergency. And if once there's an emergency, that's amazing how many people can find time. But why do we wait till an emergency? It's amazing to me how many parents whose kid falls into an addiction that can stop everything, take the time to go search for that kid, find rehabs and go through counseling with them and do all the different things and doctors that need to be done to take care of the crisis. But maybe the crisis could have been avoided if they could have just taken time every day or every week for a little bit here and there. Or how many couples can, in the midst of a divorce, find hours upon hours and thousands upon thousands of dollars to pay for lawyers and do deliberations and court hearings and everything that it takes to get through a divorce, when if they would have just taken some of that money and some of that time to go on a weekly date or see a counselor every week or commit to time together throughout the week, maybe it could have been avoided. Time doesn't slow down, and yesterday will never return. So we have to be careful with commitment creep. The other thing we have to remember is that all progress requires leaving something behind. Anytime we want to make progress on something, we got to leave something behind. If you want to love more deeply, if you want to live more boldly, give more generously, you've got to leave something behind. You've got to be willing to say, I'm going to put this to the side so that I can do this. I don't know about you, I have a day planner. Probably a lot of us here use day planners. And if you use a day planner like I do, you see that every day is this box. And I always know I only have so many hours to do things. I can only fit so many things in that box. And for me, it helps me, especially when I go back. Oftentimes I'll open my day planner at the end of the year and I'll just go through it. And I'll reflect. Did I spend enough time on the things that were important? Did I take too much time for this? Did I put too much time into that? Was I focused where I needed to be focused? Reflecting. Because you see, whether time comes to an end because Jesus comes right back, or whether my final box gets checked just because I've used up all the boxes I have, I still have to deal with the question. Am I using my time to be about my Father's business? Am I using my time the way God wants me to use it? I was thinking about that this week and I thought, we're all going to give an accounting before God. We're all going to stand before God and give an accounting of our time. I don't think when we do that, I don't think God's going to stand before us and kind of say, where were you on this day? And what were you doing on that day? And be there to necessarily judge every hour. But I kind of picture him kind of as a loving father, standing there and saying, hey, Shane, can we look at your calendar? Can we look at your time? Shane, I wanted to spend a lot of time with you. Can you just show me why maybe you didn't have as much time to spend with me as I wanted to? Shane, I kept putting all these different people in your path. Can you show me why so many of them you missed? What was it that was in your way? Shane, I wanted you to experience these great blessings and gifts in life, and yet you got so busy with these other things. Can you explain that to me? Shane, I'm glad you enjoyed that hobby. Man, that was a gift I gave to you, but it kind of sometimes felt like you loved that hobby a lot more than you loved me. See, I don't picture him necessarily judging me for those things, but rather saying, hey, Shane, as your creator, as the master who freed you from slavery, as the father who loves you, can you explain to me why maybe you were just too busy for me? And that's the final question I'd ask for us today. Are you just too busy to give back to God, to be present with people, and to pursue God's calling? Are you just too busy for it? Did you know that more than any time in history, we are in a culture where we have the ability, the opportunity, and the options to make a difference, to actually do something with our lives, to create change, to choose what options we have for us and take a path that's important, that makes a difference, more than any other time in history. And you know what really, truly scares me and saddens me about the church in America? What scares me and saddens me about the church in America is we talk so much about our freedom to worship God. And we are willing to fight on so many levels for that freedom. And yet we do so little with it. When it comes right down to it, we are so lazy with that freedom. Instead, we spend so much of it filling our time with screens, drifting into unnecessary commitments, and just allowing time to slip. I want to close with just a kind of a silly, trite, and old saying, but it makes a lot of sense. If the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. Are you living out God's purposes with the time that you have left? I don't know how many boxes on the calendar your life has left. Maybe you have 10 or 20 or 30,000 left. Maybe you only have one. Are you going to put off to tomorrow the things that you will regret? Or are you going to choose today to make the decision to love more deeply, to laugh more often, to give more generously, and to live more boldly?
I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You've been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You've been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves a 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You've been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You've been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No, no, no. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves at 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. Before you go, I want to encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to download the Church Center app. On that app, you can watch past sermons, you can connect with us, you can turn in your prayer requests, register for events, and give. Also, I want to remind you, if you're interested in giving to MVF Church, not only can you give on the Church Center app, but we have 2 giving boxes, one located at the back of the sanctuary and one in the kitchen as well. Look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks a lot.